Good morning. Welcome to the Kingsport News Hour. This is the seventh month and 25th day by the heavenly calendar and the 16th year of Changi. Timur is sitting in for the second king of Chengu, Hyung Ji-moon. And let's take the usual tour around the kingdom right now in Chongpyeong, Tennessee. 60 degrees and mostly clear. Mostly cloudy with a passing shower or two this afternoon, high of 77. And then tonight, mostly cloudy and low of 58. And then in father's hometown, Jeongju, North Pyongan province in Korea, currently 72 degrees and cloudy, low of 55 tonight, cloudy and cooler. And then tomorrow, less humid and decreasing clouds, getting up to 75. At the Cheongung Palace in Northeast Pennsylvania, currently 53 and mostly cloudy, 76 for a high today, partly sunny and pleasant, mostly cloudy with a passing shower late, with a low of 54 tonight. Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, 66. Wow, it's getting downright cool down there. 66 and clear right now, but it's still summer, getting up to 93 during the day. Today, mostly sunny skies. Tonight, getting down to a 68 for the for the nighttime and under clear skies. Suncheon Palace in Korea. It is currently 79 and mostly clear. 75 for a low tonight, partly cloudy, very warm and very humid. Tomorrow, overcast, remaining very warm and very humid. morning shower or spots, followed by a thunderstorm in parts of the area in the afternoon, high of 90 there in Korea. And at the Gunma Palaces in Japan, 86 partly cloudy, a thunderstorm in spots this evening, otherwise becoming clear and very humid, low of 72. Tomorrow, sunny to partly cloudy, hot and humid, danger of dehydration and heat stroke if outside for extended periods of time, high of 94 there in Gunma. At the Yilan property in Taiwan, hold on a second, it is currently 87, yes, 87, and clear, and getting down to 77 tonight. Wow, 70s. Cloudy this evening, then partly cloudy late. And tomorrow, 96 though. Tomorrow, hot with some clouds, then sunshine, and so forth and so on. Danger of dehydration, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, then let's go to Father's Word. And I'm in the Chanseonggyeong, the book on the way of the person of the completed Testament era. And Father's asking here, let me get some light on this. Okay. So, what is the path of the true inseng? Inseng is life or life course, lifetime or life course inseng. Life in terms of, not just biological life, but what you're going to do, for your during your life, and that kind of a life. So that kind of life is the kind of life we're talking about here. So, what is that path? What is the path of the true life or life course or true life? So, so one principle that must be established is to live for the sake of others. Father speaking here, July 1st, 1984. Live for the sake of others. This is something is common in any context. Is can be applied to any context, and it is also the basic principle. So this is something that will never change in the future. Never change in the future. Living for the sake of others. There is no past or present or future in terms of this principle. So you just live for the sake of others. And I mean, so if God were to appear to Confucius or Jesus or Shakyamuni or Mohammed and all the other saints, if he were to appear to all of them and ask them, what do you think about this? They would say, we agree. That is right. Or would they say that is right? Or would they say that is not right? Well, they will say it is right. That is the principle of the universe. All right, so that's the lesson for today. Praise God. Speaking there, July 1st, 1984. Okay. Great. See what's going on. Let's see a little bit of update on Hak Ja Han. So, there's this sort of this contest of wills going on between Hak Ja Han and the special prosecutor's office. Um, and she refused the third subpoena. She appeared to appear for the third subpoena, but said that I'm still going. I'm still going, and just tell me whether you want me to go on the 17th or the 18th. Well, the special prosecutor's office says, listen, it doesn't work that way. Okay, it does not work that way. We gave you 3 chances. You didn't appear, so now we're not giving you any more dates. We're not issuing any more invitations to you, basically. So if you call a subpoena an invitation. So the media has been speculating, and they say we're going to follow the law and our policies. And the media has been interpreting this that the special prosecutor's office is going through the process of applying for an arrest warrant. And apparently that had some effect on Hak Ja Han. And so now, today, what she's saying is that I'm going tomorrow at 10. I'll be there. So she says she's going to just go there. All right. you didn't invite me, you didn't tell me to come on that particular time, but I'm going to go there. And the prosecutor's office is saying, well, you know, that's not your appointed time. Your appointed time has already passed. Uh, or actually, they're not even addressing her. Okay, they're addressing the media. So if she wants to come, that's on her. That she of course we can't stop her. If she wants to come, we can't stop her. But we're not, providing any sort of date for her to come. So it's interesting, what will happen tomorrow. Apparently, when we if we take her word for it, she shows up at the front door of the prosecutor's office. Um, the media is assuming that yes, they will allow her in. I'm asking, will they lock the door behind her? I don't know. It's really, it's unknown, because this is not the way it usually plays out. Usually, when, for example, the former president Yoon, all right, he refused a subpoena twice, and then after twice, the special prosecutor got an arrest warrant. They got an arrest warrant for him. They gave her three chances, and she still didn't go. And now she's saying that, I think it's going to be kind of like, when you walk into a doctor's office without an appointment, and they say, well, okay, um, have a seat. We'll get to you when we get to you. But we've got some other people that we're dealing with right now. Perhaps that's what will happen. And perhaps she'll be sitting there, sort of waiting there for a few hours or a couple. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. And so it's this thing is getting very interesting. So anyway, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Uh, and why did she have to make it so difficult for herself? I mean, that's that's what she's been doing ever since 2013. So I guess she's not going to stop now, right? Anyway, so we shall see what we shall see tomorrow at 10 a.m. Korea time. All right, let's see. I wanted to start today by showing you a video. And I don't normally show videos because they could cause problems, but I think we can get away with this one. Um, I think we can get away with this one. It's not too long. And also, I think the people who made this video probably want it to be publicized. So this is a video about something that happened Monday, uh, where the Taiwan forces, Taiwan Coast Guard or Navy, drove away some communist Chinese vessels that were too close to Jinmen Island. And just to give you an idea of Jinmen Island, again, I've done this before, but this is Jinmen Island. This yellow portion here, this is a Taiwan territory. And I don't know if you can see this red line here. There's a red line there, all right, which sort of marks the border, or shall we say the sea border there in that part of the ocean between Jinmen Island and communist China. And Xiamen is a major uh, city on the. This is communist China, all right. This is the mainland CCP China, and the yellow portion is Taiwan. And the distance between here is something like 1.8 kilometers, right? 1.8 miles or something like that. So it's very close, less than 2 miles away. And so, um, this is, and actually, there were battles in the past. I think in the 49, 50, 51, early 50s, there were a couple of battles, and a lot of artillery was fired and so forth. But Taiwan forces managed to hold on, and CCP was never able to capture these islands here, this small yellow one included. So this video is about that situation that happened on Monday, where Taiwan forces uh, basically chased away some communist ships. Please ignore whatever advertisement comes up here on the right. I can't read that. Maybe you can't either. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Okay, so that's what happened on Monday. And this is, as the presenter said, this is common. This kind of thing is happening all the time, and it's part of the gray zone tactics. As she said, that means that China sort of, they come in and, for example, their fighters uh, come into the what is it, air defense identification zone of Taiwan. They don't actually come over the island itself, but they come into the air defense identification zone and sort of like this, So it's part of the tactics that China is using to wear down the defenses, the psychological defenses of the Taiwanese people. And it may be working. It may be working. So meanwhile, let's see here. Meanwhile, I want to show you this. Okay, what did I do just now? Am I still on? Yes. I want to show you this story. We can start with this story today. Taiwanese leaders flaunt de facto sovereignty as Kuomintang warns rhetoric will provoke Chinese invasion. Now, if you know anything about the history of Taiwan, you're familiar with or history of the 20th century history of the of China. You're very familiar with the term Kuomintang. Um, this is the 114th year since the Republic of China was founded. 114. So what is that minus? Anyway, early 20th century. The Republic of China was founded on the mainland, all right, on the mainland. I think Sun Yat-sen was probably a part of that and so forth, and bringing down the Qin dynasty and founding a republic in its place. And the republic existed on the mainland until 1949, when the CCP defeated them in the Civil War, and Kuomintang was party, Chiang Kai-shek and the Kuomintang Party were forced to flee to the island of Taiwan and establish their government in exile, kind of there in Taiwan in Taipei. Now, so you would think, all right, so Kuomintang is the party of people who were kicked out of mainland China by the CCP. So, well, how do you think the Kuomintang feels about the CCP? How do you think they feel about mainland China? One would expect, all right, one would expect that they would be very anti-communist. Don't I mean, doesn't that make sense to you? But no, no. And this is something that really confused me until recently, until I had an opportunity to have a conversation with a person here in Taiwan about it. The Kuomintang right now is actually the most pro-communist political party within Taiwan's uh, political spectrum, or at least pro-major political party. There may be some communists, some outright communists, but among the major political parties, the Kuomintang is the most pro-communist, pro-CCP. How does that work? They were chased out. They were chased out. So how does it work? But a few days ago, I had a conversation with a Taiwanese person, and he said, "Listen, yes, that's true, but the change came because the Kuomintang people left their families in the mainland China, right? And they're concerned about the fate of their families, and they don't want a war between Taiwan mainland China. And so their position is, well, let's get along with the Communist Party. Let's get along with the CCP. And um, um, there's quite a bit of tension right now in Taiwan between those who support Kuomintang's position on the CCP and sort of to be appeasing, I suppose you could say, or at least to be friendly. I don't know if Kuomintang would maybe they might object to me using the phrase appeasing. But on the other hand, the current president, all right, and current party in power, all right, current party in power, at least in the executive branch, is on the other end of the spectrum. Okay, they're saying no, we don't. In fact, they're saying, as you see in this headline, we want to be independent of mainland China, and we want to have nothing to do with the CCP. Meanwhile, of course, CCP is saying, hey, if Taiwan ever officially declares independence, that's a red line. We will attack. We will attack. Our military will attack Taiwan if it officially declares independence. So the party, the president previous to the current one, was sort of, playing, sort of being vague about, whether or not Taiwan was independent. And the current president is saying, we don't need to declare independence. You know why? Because we are already independent. Why would we declare independence when we are already independent? Right? We have our own government. We have our own court system. We have our own currency. Right? We have a currency that's different from the mainland's currency. And everything is different. Right? So there's no reason for us, no need to declare independence because we are independent, is what he's saying. And obviously, Beijing is not happy about that. So here, this is a story in the Washington Examiner about this current political leadership, executive leadership, sort of flaunting, he says, um, de facto sovereignty, and it is a de facto sovereignty. A de facto Taiwan is a separate country. I'm here. I had to, you know, I didn't need a visa to come here, but the entry process for China would be different. If I were to cross over into China, I would have to go through a different entry process if I were to go into China. So there is de facto sovereignty already. So let's see what they're saying here, what this article is saying. Official communications from the government of Taiwan continue to use coded language regarding the island's relationship with mainland China, but Taiwanese leaders are far less ambiguous behind closed doors. The Washington Examiner traveled to Taipei, Taiwan to speak with members of the island's government about their increased push for independence, as well as conservative opposition leaders who fear such rhetoric is thrusting their homeland to the brink of war. Interesting that Washington Examiner refers to the pro or the friendly to communist Kuomintang as conservative. I'm not sure how that works, but the word conservative means different things in different countries. And apparently here in Taiwan, it means friendly to communist China. Interesting. When asked by the Washington Examiner why the current Democratic Progressive Party government is now leaning into rhetoric about full separation from the People's Republic of China, Foreign Minister Lin Chia-lung said that it was simply the will of the people. There is a consensus in Taiwan that Taiwan is not a part of the PRC, and Taiwanese people will decide their own future because Taiwan is already a democratic country, he told the Washington Examiner. So, of course, our people can be their own masters and decide their own future. And I think, as I mentioned yesterday, I was called out by one Taiwanese person here saying that actually people in Taiwan prefer not to use the term Republic of China because it's too easily confused with the People's Republic of China. And maybe people, in other areas of the world don't know which is which. Of course, there's always an easy way. Like I mentioned yesterday, anytime you have the word people in the name of a country, you know that it's going to be a dictatorship. It's going to be anti-people. Okay? Just like when you have the word Democrat or Democratic in the name of the country, is going to be an anti-democratic government, an anti-democratic regime, right? So there's an easy way to tell the difference. But anyway, they are concerned about that. So they say I was told, we don't actually don't use the word People's Republic of China. We prefer to be known as Taiwanese. So, okay, but I'll still use Republic of China sometimes because I think Father would prefer it. But anyway, there is consensus in Taiwan that Taiwan is not part of the PRC, and Taiwanese people will decide their own future because Taiwan is already a democratic country, he told the Washington Examiner. So, of course, our people can be their own masters and decide their own future. And according to our opinion poll, in terms of identity, I can assure you that more than 80% of Taiwanese people believe that they are Taiwanese instead of Chinese, Lin said. At the same time, Lin asserted this growing consensus of Taiwanese independence. He claimed that China was using its belief that Taiwan would like to declare Taiwan independence as an excuse for verbal attack and military intimidation against the island, implying that such estimations from Beijing are unfounded. Now, one more wrinkle in the politics of Taiwan is that the current uh, executive branch of the government wants to raise the defense budget. All right. But the Kuomintang has enough uh, power in the legislature to prevent that. Isn't that interesting? Okay. So wait a second. These are the conservatives, right? These Washington Examiner is referring to the party that does not want to raise the defense budget as conservative. All right, Washington Examiner, you're going to have to explain that to me. Uh, all right, what do they mean conservative anyway? Does that mean that they want limited government? Is that what they mean? I don't think so. I don't think so. Very strange. Very strange. Anyway, okay. So anyway, so he's saying that China is using its belief that Taiwan would like to declare independence. Wink, wink, wink. Wink, wink, wink. These politicians and diplomats, who else independent? They think that we want to be independent, but did we ever say that? Wink, wink, wink. All right, so here, the foreign minister's comments were confusing. Yes, they were, weren't they? Yes, okay, yes. But he elucidated them in much clearer terms about the government's self-conception. We are a sovereign country. We don't need to declare independence. Yes, you see, that's the position of the current governing party. We are already independent. We have our army, we have our diplomacy, we have our government. Deputy Foreign Minister Chi Chong-wu told a gathering of journalists in Taipei on Tuesday. And I can tell you, my president has even more legitimacy than the president of China, Xi Jinping, because my president was elected by millions of voices. Xi Jinping was only elected by one voice. So who has more legitimacy? Wu, who formerly served as Taiwan's representative in France, embodies the ruling Democratic Progressive Party's ethos, the belief that Taiwan is already sovereign, whether Beijing accepts it or not. The deputy foreign minister continued, of course, we hope every country can recognize us, but this is not the case today. And actually, the United States, for example, does not officially recognize Taiwan as a sovereign country. Neither does Japan, neither does Korea. Even though the United States sells weapons to Taiwan over the objections of obvious objections of the PRC, but there is no embassy of the United States in Taiwan. There is no embassy of Japan in Taiwan. There is no embassy of South Korea in Taiwan. Okay? Instead, you have something else. I've forgotten exactly what it's called right now. Cultural Association. Anyway, it's something else that acts as an embassy. All right. Again, in diplomatic terms, words are sometimes used in other meanings. And anyway, but you'll never see a building with a sign on it that says Embassy of the United States or France or UK or Germany for that matter either. Okay, so we are not seeking for the moment more diplomatic recognition because we know that will make China very angry and stability will be destroyed in the region. which means what? You got to interpret these people. Taiwan, also known as the Republic of China, has existed in a geographical limbo for decades following its defeat by Communist Party forces in the Chinese Civil War. The Chinese nationalist movement, led by Chiang Kai shek, fled to the island in 1949 as a government in exile. And for a long time, the United States recognized only the Taipei government as the legitimate government of all of China. So also with Japan, also with South Korea, right? Only the government of Taipei was the legitimate government. They did not officially recognize the government in Beijing. What changed? Well, Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon changed that. Yeah. What was he thinking? Well, he was thinking that uh, he needed China to help him counterbalance the Soviet Union. Is what actually what Henry Kissinger was thinking, and Nixon sort of accepted Kissinger's strategy in that sense. And so they decided to dump Taiwan and go with the CCP. And of course, Japan, South Korea, and all the others also did the same. And the idea was that, also later on, even going so far as to bring CCP, China, into the World Trade Organization. The idea was that, hey, if we help them get rich, they will adopt free market policies and they will reform politically as well. And they'll become just like another democratic country in Asia. Didn't quite work out that way, at least not so far. All right. Chiang did not envision the island as a new country, but as an operational base for the reconquest of the mainland so that the Republic of China could be reestablished. That's true. That dream never manifested, and eventually the Republican government's international legitimacy was transferred to the surging mainland. The Chinese Communist Party was recognized as the only legitimate government in China by the United Nations in 1971. So, yeah, and so until 1971, it was the Taiwanese government, the government of Taipei, for example, that sat uh, on the UN Security Council. They had a permanent seat on the UN Security Council, and they had a power of veto, just like the other permanent members of the Security Council, U.S., France, Russia, and who else? U.S., France, Russia, China, and UK. UK is also one of those. The CCP therefore insists that under its one China policy, that Taiwan, now a thriving economy and tech juggernaut with approximately 24 million citizens, rightfully belongs to Beijing. The Taiwanese government has long preferred to eschew such conversations and maintain the status quo of ambiguous diplomacy, neither declaring itself independent nor reunifying with the mainland. Recent administrations have tested the limits of this ambiguity, seeming to shift the question from is Taiwan independent to does Taiwan affirm its own obvious independence? Wu called the country's current situation a new form of life in which citizens don't need recognition from other countries because the country just exists. Well, and that is true. I mean, I came here, right? I came here. Xi Jinping had nothing to say about my coming here. His government had nothing to say about whether I could come to Taiwan. I'm here. Others are here. It just exists. President Lai Ching-te has been among the most provocative mouthpieces of the independence movement, stirring ire on the mainland with speeches that call China a foreign hostile force and all but explicitly declare the Taiwanese sovereignty on the world stage. The Republic of China and the People's Republic of China are not subordinate to each other, he said during his New Year's address in January, infuriating Beijing. On this land, democracy and freedom are growing and thriving. The People's Republic of China has no right to represent Taiwan. With each gesture toward independence, Taiwan is punished by military drills and invasion exercises from the People's Liberation Army. High-ranking, as we saw in that video just at the beginning, high-ranking officials in the CCP have claimed for years that the mainland intends to invade Taiwan by 2027. Experts claim this timeline may be extended due to the unforeseen return of President Donald Trump. We saw it. What are you talking about? What do you mean unforeseen? Anyway, whose international decision making is unpredictable and troublesome for Chinese wargaming. But actually, President Trump is just returning to what was the official U.S. policy prior to Biden. Always the United States government maintained strategic ambiguity as to whether U.S. would intervene militarily in a military conflict between the mainland and Taiwan. Would the United States defend Taiwan? This has always been ambiguous. Biden actually took the step and said, yeah, we will defend Taiwan. But now President Trump has gone back to that original policy. So it is troublesome for Chinese wargaming, and that's the idea. That's the purpose of strategic ambiguity. Lai has championed a 4 pillars of peace action plan to deal with the mainland, which advocates strengthening national defense, building economic security, strengthening partnerships with democratic countries, and stable and principled cross-strait leadership. Peace is priceless, and war has no winners. However, when we have ideals for peace, we cannot harbor illusions, the president said last week at a military ceremony at the Taoyuan Army Academy. Only peace achieved through strength is true peace. Peace cannot be achieved by ceding sovereignty, nor can peace be achieved simply by a piece of paper. Lai's conservative opposition, however, and there we go again with the Kuomintang being labeled as conservative. Okay. Anyway, I don't understand this. I have to ask someone. Believes that the president is far too bombastic, inviting China's wrath at a time when U.S. protection is not a guarantee. The Kuomintang, or KMT, also known as the Nationalist Party of China, is the party formerly led by Chiang Kai-shek that ruled the entirety of the Republic of China before Mao Zedong's communist military forced it to flee to Taiwan. The KMT rejects the idea of Taiwanese independence as a pipe dream, one that, if pursued too openly, could get the island's population killed. The Washington Examiner met with Alexander Huang, special advisor to KMT, Chairman Eric Chu, and Director of International Affairs for the party at KMT headquarters in Taipei. Huang, also a professional military strategist and university professor, told the Washington Examiner that his party sees the DPP's posturing as a cynical move to build domestic support without considering the long-term consequences. A misjudgment in Taiwanese policy or a miscalculation of how to deal with a neighbor that is only 68 nautical miles away from us is very dangerous. You can show our middle fingers for fun or to rally support and say, we are independent. You can get elected. However, you jeopardize our national security by doing that, he explained. Because you need to pretend Taiwan is not independent. That's what we call ambiguity. There will be no cross-strait relationship if we give up ambiguity. And anytime you hear the word cross-strait, this is referring to the relationship between across the Taiwan Strait, in other words, between Taiwan and the CCP China. KMT's position is to manage an ambiguous, vague concept of one China while actually maintaining two Chinas until such a day when the emperor dies, and we will turn that page, Huang said, alluding to Xi. We will try to delay the D-Day as much as we can. We want to maintain the status quo. We want to quietly enhance our military-to-military collaboration with the United States and allied forces. We want to wave our hands to the mainland and say, hey, guys, no war, okay? Huang sees the United States and other democratic nations' political support as a valuable bargaining chip to maintain peace, but an unreliable backstop if an invasion is launched. Despite broad sympathy for Taiwan, Western powers universally recognize the People's Republic under the One China policy. They all have an official relationship with Beijing, not us, so talking is nice. But when things go down to the dirty side, they may not be able to help us, Huang said. We are not a member of the United Nations. We have only 12 diplomatic relationships. We have no military alliance. So only 12 countries in the world actually recognize the government of Taiwan And I think at the same time, they do not recognize PRC or CCP China. The KMT pursues a close relationship with the mainland in hopes that foreign intervention will not be necessary, in hopes that friendliness and cooperation, coupled with defensive preparations, will convince Chinese leaders that the cost benefit calculus of invading is too much of a headache. The cautious hermits of the KMT do not attempt to forecast the future. It is concerned solely with the here and now, preserving the peace for just one more day and waiting for the CCP to collapse like the imperial dynasties that ruled China before. I do not believe that the one party dictatorship will be forever, the professor told the Washington Examiner. So I tell my students, I tell my audiences, I say, we need to sustain this democracy. We need to protect this institution. We need to live longer than this. And finally, I say, if you have a question that should be asked in the church, do not bring it to my class. Asked what he meant by this last statement, Huang said he was referring to the unknowable future of cross-strait relations and how only God knows the end. Well, if you're talking about the end, yes, that is true. If you're talking about, of course, God's kingdom will eventually come. That is true, but God doesn't know whether there's going to be a war between Taiwan and China. That's up to human beings. Yes. So, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? This Washington Examiner story, I think, did a good job of presenting both sides of the argument that is a constant discussion here in Taiwan. And right now, people have chosen through the ballot box to have two successive presidents who favor independence. All right. And this one favors independence more than the last president did. But on the other hand, the electorate in Taiwan has given the KMT enough power in the legislature that uh, they can prevent the current president from raising the defense budget and prevent the president from doing other things that you might want to do, right? But the United States is, cooperating militarily with Taiwan, and even on that Jinmen Island, just across the strait from mainland China, there was an article sometime back that special forces, U.S. special forces, were there, hoping to train Taiwanese military personnel there. I don't know if they're still there. I don't know if that's a permanent situation or not, but they were there. And uh, we'll see. But it is, this is a country that, even more so than South Korea, really lives on a knife edge. Uh, at least in Korea, I don't know if at least is the right word, but at least well, there I go again with at least. In Korea, Kim Jong Un has said, we're a separate country. We're going to treat the South as a separate country. We're not going to seek unification, and even tore down the arch, right, that was over the street, over the leading to South Korea. It was that symbolized future unification. He even tore that down, dynamited it, and even dynamited the joint economic project that was going on between the two sides. But here, China keeps saying, "You belong to me. You belong to us," and 2027 is coming. Every day we get closer to 2027. So, you know, you better start saving your savings in communist Chinese currency. Well, they don't actually say that, but yeah, it is a country that's on the knife edge. But I was commenting to some, after Charlie Kirk's assassination, I was commenting that actually I feel safer here than I do in the United States. So a lot to think about, a lot to pray about. But we do need to pray for the liberation of Cheongju, father's hometown, which the king believes has been guided by father, can happen through the opening up of China. Um, Currently, the king is unable to travel to China, as I think he said often, because of, well, we assume it's because he met the Dalai Lama many years ago. But China has a long memory and they don't forgive. So they will ban anyone who has met the Dalai Lama because they want to control Tibetan Buddhism. And right now, just as a note, Dalai Lama is getting old, and there's discussion about his successor, who's going to be the next Dalai Lama. And the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, is saying that they must approve the next successor. Yep, yep. I mean, that's how it works under Xi Jinping and under the Chinese Communist Party. That's how it works. The Catholic Church has to get approval from the Chinese Communist Party to appoint bishops. I think even the Bishop of Hong Kong, if I'm not mistaken, at least bishops that sort of represent what Catholics are approved to exist in mainland China. The bishops have to be approved by the CCP, and Rome actually has compromised on that. They have appeased the Chinese Communist Party on that, and it's very disturbing. Actually, the relationship between the Vatican and the Chinese Communist Party is very disturbing. Very disturbing. I mean, all right, well, that's getting off too much on the sideline there. All right, so that is what is happening there in uh, with the Taiwan situation. And let's see here. Let's see. I had a story here on X that I wanted. Oh yeah, okay. Um, I have a story on Newsmax with Dan Bongino, and then also on X with about Kash Patel. But let's see. Okay, let's go with the head guy. Bongino is the sub guy, so let's go with the head guy. So Kash Patel is going to appear in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee today, Tuesday, September 16th, and he is expected to notify the Oversight Committee that the former FBI leadership, including Andy McCabe and Peter Strzok, obstructed justice and prevented congressional oversight in relation to the Wiener laptop Hillary emails case. Um, and Kat Patel says, if you're going to come at me, use facts. All you have is disinformation and lies. I'll see you prime time in front of the world. America deserves a better brand of justice, and I'm giving it to them. Bring it. Okay. So that's going to happen today at the Senate. And then let's also do this one on Dan Bongino. Bongino, he's talking about the Kirk assassination here. FBI's Bongino to Newsmax. Bureau sees a wider network in Charlie Kirk's assassination. Okay, so that's encouraging that they're going after that wider network, not just to say it was a single, a lone gunman, as past administrations have done. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino told Newsmax on Monday that investigators have uncovered significant developments suggesting a broader network of people might have been involved in the assassination of conservative icon Charlie Kirk. Bongino told Rod Schmidt tonight the Bureau is working to determine whether online chatter that surfaced around the time of Kirk's murder indicates foreknowledge of the plot. He cautioned that investigators are still sorting out a timeline. The only question is the timeline that other people knew about the incident, Bongino said. Did they know before? Did they know afterward? When you read some of the traffic, it's unclear if that message was received before or after. Bongino confirmed much of the evidence came from the chat platform Discord, where suspected gunman Tyler Robinson, 22, was active. It's not a safe harbor to go on a platform and say, I can threaten to kill or harass someone, Bongino said. We'll go anywhere to look for you if we believe you committed a crime. Bongino stressed the investigation is in its early stages. This is not the end of the investigation. He said it's not even the end of the beginning. We are investigating a potential broader network of people who may have known. Pressed on whether the developments involved other individuals, Bongino acknowledged that was the case, but said he had to tread carefully. That's an accurate assessment. He said, my goal in coming on your show, Rob, is I and FBI Director Kash Patel obviously want to be transparent and get out into the public. We don't want an information vacuum which can be filled by others. Well, we can get out there, we fully intend on doing, but we still have to respect process in the investigation. Bongino also addressed the Trump administration's nationwide anti-crime push launched 5 months ago in coordination with the Department of Justice. The campaign has flooded federal resources into into cities hindered by gang violence, carjackings, and narcotics trafficking. People can say stay out of our cities all they want, but their cities are in the United States of America, Bongino said. We have a field office presence in just about every major city. The FBI, Drug Enforcement Administration, and local police have worked jointly on what Bongino described as a baseball card system targeting fugitives and violent offenders one by one. He said recent declines in crime rates in cities such as Chicago, Los Angeles, Memphis are directly tied to the federal surge, despite Democrat leaders' claims of success on their own. Bongino's comments came after President Donald Trump and senior advisor Stephen Miller urged an expansive federal response to what they describe as organized networks fueling political violence. Miller went viral earlier Monday for warning about the growing fraction of extremists celebrating Kirk's murder online. Growing faction of extremists. We're not the Federal Bureau of Fairy Tales, he said. We're the Federal Bureau of Investigation. If you break the law and threaten to kill or, in fact, violently attack someone, you don't get a pass because you disagreed with his politics. He emphasized that the Bureau intends to keep the public informed while safeguarding the integrity of the case. What we can get out there, we fully intend on doing, Bongino said. We don't want an information vacuum that can be filled by others, right? So it looks like, of course, it looks like they're doing a good job there. Of course, Patel has been attacked. As you would expect, he's been attacked. Of course, he's going to get attacked. You can always judge a man by his enemies, right? And Patel is developing some pretty bad enemies, so he must be a good guy. And Dan Bongino as well. But they are doing a good job, and we want to support them with our prayers. Okay? But we hope that they can really go after people who are trying to destroy America. These are not patriots. They are not the patriotic opposition. They want to bring down America, or at least in its current form, and they want to establish something else instead. They want, Xi Jinping to come in and establish his form of democracy. Okay? The Democratic Republic of America. That's probably what they'll call it if they get a chance. And we don't want that. Or the People's Democratic Republic of America. Yeah, North Korea has both. they have both. They have DP, Democratic People's Republic of Korea. So they're doubly bad. They're doubly bad. They have both Democratic and People's. All right, let's see what's going on with the Epic Times here. The rate cut, yeah, we all know that's coming on Wednesday. Okay, let's try to look at some of these headlines here. Okay, FBI looking into other possible Charlie Kirk assassination accomplices. Bongino says, all right, they also got that. And Rob Schneider hopes for a renewed focus on free speech after Kirk's assassination. Yeah, and we saw yesterday how tens of thousands of people want to start Turning Point USA branches or the equivalent of high school branches around the country, which I think is great. And so, yeah, I told you about this yesterday. Vance honors Kirk by hosting special broadcasts of Kirk's show. I told you about that in advance yesterday. I hope you caught it. And then GOP leaders commemorate Kirk at prayer vigil. Okay, good. All right. All right. And Trump is still trying to remove this member of the Federal Reserve Board. This is the lady there. Uh, Meanwhile, he was able to put his own personnel up there. Okay, what is this? BLS overestimates Biden jobs by nearly 1.5 million. The Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay, so he's got a chart there. You know, of course, me and a lot of people have talked a lot about how the inflation figures that the government puts out every month are not really accurate, and um, other figures as well. All right, other figures as well. Unfortunately, the I guess the process is really not all that transparent, and that's a problem. But they put these numbers out, and policies are made based on those policies and based on those numbers, and those policies affect you and me, affect our mortgage rates, they affect our credit card rates if you're carrying a balance on your credit card, um, and also it affects employment because if companies find that the cost of capital is more expensive, then they're less likely to invest in creating more jobs. Cost of capital basically is the interest rate. And it's the money that they pay to the bank in order to borrow capital, which is the interest rate or cost of capital. But I I think we can say that at least compared to the CCP China, America's figures are relatively more accurate. But this recent this recent downgrading of the or job creation data by nearly a million jobs over what is it, close to a year. Um, it's pretty, I think, disheartening, and it really undermines the credibility of the government data. Is data coming out during the Trump administration any more accurate? Could be, but we have no way of knowing that for sure, unfortunately. Yeah, we have no way of knowing that for sure. Okay. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay, I think that's about it here. Yeah, otherwise. Okay, this is what? Okay, we got another drug boat bombing missile strike. Take a look at that. Uh, is this what is this? Let's bring this up. So it looks like U.S. is really, or Trump administration is really going to war with these people, and perhaps with the government of Venezuela as well. It looks like. Is this the same one that we had before? Um, the drug war was September 15th. Okay. during the second such strike. Okay, second such strike carried out against a suspected drug boat in recent weeks, still from video released. So the video was released yesterday, and it was the so the attack was probably not yesterday because it would take time for them to declassify it, but it was the second strike that they did. Okay, okay. It was the second such strike in less than 2 weeks. This morning, on my orders, uh, well, okay, he says this morning, so I guess it was yesterday. Let's go ahead and believe. Let's go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay. U.S. military forces conducted a second kinetic strike against positively identified, extraordinarily violent drug trafficking cartels and narco terrorists in the Southcom area of responsibility, Trump posted on Truth Social. So I guess they're still trying, right? They're still trying. The strike occurred while these confirmed narco terrorists from Venezuela were in international waters, transporting illegal narcotics, a deadly weapon poisoning Americans headed to the U.S. These extremely violent drug trafficking cartels pose a threat to U.S. national security, foreign policy, and vital U.S. interests. Trump said that no U.S. forces suffered casualties and issued a warning to drug traffickers. Yeah, and the Democrats who always support the least popular, the least popular people will say, "Oh, these poor drug traffickers, their human rights are violated. The due process was violated, probably." Um, and also, the Europeans will shout, "Oh, war crime, war crime, war crime." But I think President Trump says, "Okay, well, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? All right, what are you going to do about it?" And he's showing the power of the presidency, and I think certainly, we are glad that he's doing this. But always remember, what I always emphasize: you cannot just deal with the supply side. You got to deal with the demand side as well. And President Trump is not putting enough emphasis on the demand side. What is the demand side? Well, encouraging um, heterosexual two-parent families, heterosexual two-parent families. Now, the recent, Kirk assassination. This happened uh, with the guy that was with a guy that was raised in a heterosexual two-parent family. It looks like, but you're going to get some bad apples, and also he was influenced by his transgender roommate apparently in college. So heterosexual two-parent families who are careful about who their kids' roommates are when they go to college. Uh, or maybe even careful about sending their kids to college in the first place. There's a lot of people who go to college, and this is not something that I've grown to believe recently, but even when I was in college, I felt a lot of people go to college uh, are wasting their money there. Yeah. All right. Gotta go. And so tomorrow is Wednesday, so we'll do our usual thing on Wednesday. And I will see you then. So God bless, Godspeed. May his kingdom come quickly.